episode of Curious. On today's show, we have a conversation with writer, poet, performer, and documentary filmmaker Caroline Rothstein. Caroline's work has been featured in The New Yorker, MTV News, The Chicago Tribune, on CBS Evening News, BuzzFeed, and more. Lady Gaga calls her a very inspiring woman. Welcome, Caroline.
Hi.
How did you meet Lady Gaga?
I haven't met her yet.
Oh.
But many years ago, she tweeted a video of mine, of me performing my poem Fat, and it went viral. Viral used to mean 50,000 views in a day, and that landed me on MTV News, Chicago Tribune, and I acquired a bunch of Gaga fans who are so kind, let me tell you.
So let's talk about Fat Is Not a Feeling.
Yes.
Is that the video that she...
No, it was the video that she tweeted was a poem of mine called Fat. Mm-hmm. I had posted a video online and it just sort of sat there dormant. It was part of a HuffPost piece about me. And Fat Is Not a Feeling came many years later. It was a collaboration with BuzzFeed.
And that has over 2 million views.
It does, and then when you add the Facebook views, it's a whole lot of millions of views.
Now, people can view that on YouTube,
yes,
correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what do you think are the steps to choosing to love your body?
We're just diving right in, huh?
Yes, yes we are.
Wow, what are the steps to choosing to love your body? The first word that comes to me is permission. Permission from yourself to shut out the voices both inside your head and outside your body that tell you you are less than enough.
So how did you come to make this particular short video?
Yeah, so a friend of mine was at the time a producer at BuzzFeed. Mm-hmm. And for years she'd said, we gotta find a way to collaborate. I wanna collaborate around all the body empowerment work that you do. Mm-hmm. And I was on, so I'm a journalist and a touring spoken word poet. I'm a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And I was on a deadline for an article about sexual assault on college campuses. Mm-hmm. It was a big feature article. And I had this sort of breakdown moment where I'd been sitting at my desk for so many weeks that I didn't feel very present in my body. Mm-hmm. And I started actively trying on every dress in my closet out of I gotta make sure that everything fits. Am I still in my body? Am I still in my body? Mm-hmm. And I ended up sitting in my underwear on my bed, realizing what a miracle my stomach was, rolls and all. Mm-hmm. And I wrote this email to this producer at BuzzFeed News, and she said, this is our video.
Wow.
And in it I said, I realized sitting there with my stomach that fat is not a feeling. We think we feel fat, but really we're feeling emotions, and we cover it up with this shame, this societal shame, that the physical fat on our bodies is not as holy as it really is. And so I happened to be going out to LA shortly thereafter, and we filmed the piece after putting the words of it together. And she told me to bring out poetry journals from middle school and collages from high school.
You've been writing poetry since middle school and you still have it?
Actually, since elementary school, and I do have the very teenage angsty journals from middle school and high school. And so the producer had me bring these journals out, and her animator scanned all of my childhood journals and collages and turned it into the animation that became the bedrock of the piece. So it was a stunning collaboration. It really wasn't just me, it was all of us together.
What is it like experiencing that writing again? Because you're a different person than you were in elementary school. You've learned some things.
Yeah, well, the elementary school poetry is just hysterical. That makes me laugh. It was in middle school where it started to get painful. And that's, I feel sad that young Caroline had to be in so much pain. And I also feel odd that it's possible to heal as much as I have, which is really just a microcosm for how much we're all able to heal. So it's okay, if I can be 35, 14 and a half years, fully recovered from a decade-long eating disorder, healed from various other traumas. Like, we can heal this earth. And it doesn't mean that I don't feel pain or anxiety or have hard days, because I absolutely do. But the fact that, like, that hopeless child sitting in her pink bedroom in Wilmette, Illinois, like, could become the me sitting here with you is a testament to how important therapy and support and resources and access to care is.
Access to care. So I think I should backtrack. You're right.
Yeah.
I jumped in a little.
Yeah, but it was amazing.
So let's talk about your background and what brought you to where you are today. I felt, at first I thought, well, a lot of people can read or look at the previous interviews you've had and where you've talked about that, but let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
So what have you healed from? Where have you come from?
So I grew up with a lot of privilege and luxury, which feels really important to name because that's part of my story as well. I had an eating disorder from ages 11 to 21. I was sexually assaulted for a year and a half in high school from ages 14 to 15. I was raped my first month of college, and a week after that, my younger brother, who was 15 at the time, was hit by a car and killed. And I've experienced a lot of other deaths in my life, a lot of other kinds of traumas and griefs and losses. To me, those are like really the big three, the triumvirate of...
That's a lot.
And, you know, and I struggled with depression and self-harm and...
I can understand
understand, right, and all these other pieces. And so that's like the load of the trauma, if you will. And I've found, especially in the last few years, when we are finally, with so much more to go as a society, as a country, starting to confront marginalization and access to care and access to humanity and dignity, that it's also important to name that I had access to therapy and support and care, both growing up and in college, that I can attribute to the fact that, you know, while I was healing from these things, and yes, I'm a woman, and yes, I'm Jewish, and anti-Semitism is a whole other bag of tricks, I wasn't also confronting racism. I wasn't also confronting ableism. I wasn't also confronting...
What's ableism?
So ableism is oppression and the marginalization towards people with disabilities. So I would call myself an able-bodied person. My body is able to move to its full capacity, and I'm not hindered with any things that make it, you know, so the fact that I'm able to move and I don't have to think about access to movement is a thing that makes it both easier for me to walk into spaces to get the support I need, and I'm not also simultaneously combating what it means to be a person with disabilities in this country.
You just rattled off a list of trauma.
Totally. I buried the lead.
And just, it was kind of matter of fact.
Yeah.
So how did you get to that space, A?
Yeah.
And B, how do you speak about trauma without being re-traumatized or triggered? And I guess we should say what a trigger is when you answer that question.
A lot of therapy, so much therapy, from talk therapy to body-based trauma work. So
body-based trauma work.
Yeah,
explain.
So for the last 6 years, I've been meeting about monthly with a practitioner who specializes in trauma work, in what's called somatic healing. So somatic is body-based physical. So she'll work with me to, like I actually had a session earlier today. Today was my monthly session. And we touched in on where am I feeling things in my body. And since my body is a body that's been through a lot of trauma and has held trauma in different parts of me, it takes time to start to reorient and to know how to contain my energy, how to sit with myself when I'm feeling anxious. A trigger is something, and I'm not a clinician, so I want to be mindful that I'm not...
But I think you understand what it is and what it feels like, so you can talk about it from that perspective.
So my experience of a trigger is something that can activate experiences of trauma or big feelings in a way that can make it hard to stay present in the moment. Sometimes the body can disassociate and we can feel like we're like not even in ourselves. So I've done a lot of work on learning how to not disassociate, on learning how to stay present, on building a toolbox of things that can help me when I'm either triggered or just genuinely being a human being in 2019 Earth, which can be a lot.
Yes.
And so therapy has been huge. I think also because I've made a career out of sharing my story in hopes that A, people know they're not alone in whatever they may be dealing with, and B, that we can prevent the preventable, right? Change and death are the only inevitable
Things you
things.
can't change.
Everything else, we can prevent sexual assault. We can prevent racism, we can prevent misogyny, we can prevent eating disorders and many mental illnesses. And so for me, in sharing my story over and over, it's not like I've become numb to it. I've just learned how to hold it so that I can take care of myself and hopefully take care of the listener and the reader and the audience while at it. And I also recognize, like, I call myself a casual trauma dropper, right? Like, even here, a casual trauma dropper. Because I'll just like you said, I just like, I just like rattled it off. Even on a first date, if someone's like, "What's your work about?" I'll just be like, and it's not that I'm numb to it. It's just, why should we be ashamed to talk about the things that have been plaguing humanity for millions of millions, probably more like thousands of years. I don't know why I said millions, but maybe we don't know. Maybe could have been millions, because I don't think those things need to plague us. And so I'm interested in destigmatizing it.
We met at the Bronx Memoir Project.
Yes.
And you were a facilitator. And do you remember the prompts that you gave us? Do you remember about talking about?
I do vaguely remember them.
Okay, so I would like, if you can remember one.
Yes.
Because for myself, for me, it opened up writing. It opened up writing about something that I was not comfortable writing about or even talking about, and it shocked me. So, could you tell the audience what the prompt was? Is this something about tell a story that you can't tell, or
tell the story you're afraid to tell?
There you go. And I recommend that all the viewers try and write that prompt. Write to that prompt.
Yeah.
And where did that come from? Like, I understand that it's probably organic from your work. Like, at this point, how to get to that place. But how do you get others to that place?
So, in terms of how I choose prompts when I'm facilitating a writing workshop or any kind of workshop for that matter, I'll come with the prompts in advance, and I'll think about what the learning objectives are and what the goals are. And I have a host of prompts, both that I've curated over time or that many of my colleagues and I have co-created over time. That prompt in particular, I want to credit my friend Lauren Whitehead. I'm not afraid to say this because I think all of my poet friends and I are in agreement. She might be the best facilitator on earth. She is a poet, she's a dramaturg, she's an educator. And we once co-facilitated a workshop in rural Pennsylvania for high school students. And the students were not like taking the leap. We could all feel that there was risk ready to be taken in the room, but like someone needed to just like push. And Lauren was like, "What are you all not saying?" and I watched the like fearlessness of her taking the risk to invite everyone. And that was the moment that led me to that moment in the workshop. I have to credit Lauren.
It shook me up. It almost catches you off guard.
Yeah. And I do want to say though, just like when you have to warm to the viewers and audience out there, just like how you have to warm up if you're going to play sports, right? You don't just like dive on the field playing a soccer game without warming up first.
No.
If you're going to write about big things, you got to warm up. And so if you'll remember, we had warmed up before I said that question. We didn't walk in and I didn't say, all right, everyone, what are you afraid to write about? Go. I eased us into it.
Yes.
We did little free writing exercises. We read, you know what I mean? We
it was
talked,
a wonderful workshop.
We led ourselves to that moment. So writing courageously, I would say also requires some warming up. So if you're going to try a prompt like that, I highly recommend, easing yourself into it. What are some questions? Maybe thinking about, what'd you eat for breakfast? Describe a scene that you don't often talk about, right? Like you got to ease yourself into that vulnerability, into that courageous bravery. Now I'm just naming synonyms, but
and then how do you keep writing? So once you've gotten to that place, because I believe in one of your articles you wrote about.
Yes, I was attending a training on an anti-harassment training on ending harassment in the workplace, and a man sitting next to me harassed me.
Yes, and I understand that being frozen, because you're in your head thinking, how could this happen? Here, and then you're so caught up in why did this happen? I can't believe he's doing this, that you don't do anything.
Yeah.
And then the question becomes, what do you do?
Sure.
And then you wrote about that.
Yeah.
So how did you write about that?
So I want to first note what you said, the freezing, just like to use some of the language we've used already. That for me was a trauma response.
Yes.
Because of my experiences of trauma, my body froze in that moment. And I have enough resources from therapy to know, okay, here's what's happening to my body. I can't move right now. When I'm able to move, I'll check in with someone I know in the room, which is what I did. And I advocated for myself, and so there was a whole process. In terms of writing about it, I'm an artist, and anything is up for grabs. And when something like that happens, my activism kicks into gear too. And it's like, of all the places on earth, this dude is gonna cross a boundary in an anti-harassment training? No way. And to me, it was like a no-brainer that once I had safely emotionally gotten myself through the experience, that it had to be an essay.
How do you make safe choices? Because you said, I believe in the article, it was like a choice of fight or flight.
Yeah.
So I speak from experience. So it's hard to not just react and like punch somebody's lights out, rather than saying, okay, I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to walk away. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes people push you to the point where, they don't know to back off, that it's time to back off. And in fact, I think you've mentioned that in some of your poems, which I will give a warning about language. So I think you speak about that very expressively, about those choices.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to learn to make the better choice? I don't know if there's a better or a good choice.
It might be like best or safest for yourself in that moment.
Because I was going to say, if it's a dangerous situation, then...
I feel like I'm still learning. I think we're in a body for the rest of our lives. And when we're not, we're not in life anymore. And I think, I often say when people are like, is it a struggle? I don't like the language. For me, it doesn't work to say it's a struggle every day with regards to my past. Because I don't want to constantly live in fear of food or my body or the world around me, right? I love life. I'm an optimist.
And you said you love food,
and
too.
I love food. What a gift, and how lucky I am to have access to it. My God, are we not dealing with a food insecurity crisis in this country and world. So I have access to breathing, to moving, to being alive. If I walk around afraid all the time, I miss out and I don't get to celebrate what like is the world I'm hoping we can create for each other, which is access to choice, right? That's really what it is, which is what you're talking about, making a choice. And so for me, I don't want to feel like I'm struggling every day. I'm in continual conversation with what it means to be in a body, period. And so that means I am in continual growing around what it means to be in the present. And sometimes that's going to mean staying put until I am safe to move. And sometimes that's going to mean like popping off at the mouth immediately.
So now, what do you talk a lot about being present in your body?
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone? I know you're not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I'm asking you to speak from your own experience, because I would assume a lot of people who have experienced trauma are separated from their body, because to feel those, to feel whatever's going on in the body is a reminder of what happened. So what are the steps, or what do you do, I guess? Well, we've discussed that, but.
Yeah, again, therapy.
But what if you can't? Here's my thing.
Yeah,
because
not everyone can access therapy.
It's not only access; it's finding
the right person.
Yes, and that's not an easy thing to do, because we're talking about personalities and way of treating someone.
Absolutely.
So,
mindfulness and meditation, which is something, especially with the internet now, hopefully, at least videos are accessible to everyone, be it on YouTube or somewhere, or a website. So mindfulness and meditation, breathing. If you're alive, God willing, you're breathing. So learning how to slow down the breath. For me, yoga has been really helpful. Also, like knowing who my electron layers of people are. Like, who are my people, right? Like, and who in my Rolodex do I call for each item on my list of things, you know? For example, when my parents were getting divorced, I was leaning on friends who'd been children of divorce.
I see.
Or when I'm having a tough time with, when I would say my body image flares up, right? Which is what I would describe moments when I'm not feeling in love with.
Body image flare up.
Yeah, when I'm not feeling obsessed with myself.
Cool.
There are certain people I know to go to. When it's work related, I lean on my artist friends and other, right? And so I have the luxury of having really incredible people in my life, and having cultivated really powerful interpersonal relationships. So it's knowing who the go-to is, and knowing who will reflect back to me the things that will help me feel grounded.
And who will be honest.
And who will be honest. And who will, sometimes I need to be challenged, right? And so that's the phone call, that's the text, that's the coffee hang. For me, taking walks is really helpful. I also love public transportation. So I do.
You love public
So
what do you mean by that?
Well, sometimes for me, riding the bus in New York City is my spa. Because there's this like the subway, I love the subway, but it can get very hectic. And the bus takes a long time. And it's this automatic way of slowing down. And I've experienced the loveliest bus drivers. So even the exchange, right? Because when you go through the turnstile on the subway, it's not very personal.
No.
But when you get onto a bus, you are being welcomed by an MTA employee who grants you access, and you have to see, do the people that need to be seated have seats? Is there a space for me to sit? Am I going to stand? What, to me, the bus is
So that doesn't bother you, standing?
No, it's this incredible opportunity to, actually be present in my body. So, people think I'm a little bonkers when I say this, but
no, I
but
don't.
for me, the bus is one of my tools.
I have to agree with you. It's kind of nice riding on a bus and you don't have to drive and somebody else is driving and you're looking out the window.
Oh, it's lovely. And you see movement in real time. I feel the same when I travel a lot for performing and facilitating workshops. I feel the same way on an airplane. It's like, it is my spa.
I don't know about the airplane. That's kind of cold.
So for me, those various things help me ground, and I think it's about finding for each of us.
We're going to have to wrap up in a few minutes, but I wanted to get to this.
Please.
For our viewers.
Yeah.
What are the steps to telling your truth even when no one wants to hear it?
Yeah. So as I shared for you and everyone in the writing workshop where we met, the number one important audience member is yourself. So first and foremost, it's knowing that you deserve to hear your own story, however that's being told. And from there, it's like a bonus prize if you share it with anyone else, be that your best friend, your partner, a loved one, or a million people on YouTube. Whatever it is.
A million people on YouTube.
Just like, who knows? That's an extreme. But really, first and foremost, you deserve to hear your own story and your own truth. So that's step one, is it's that permission piece I talked about earlier. Giving yourself permission that you are enough, and witnessing yourself is like a holy, sacred act. Once there is a willingness and that permission giving for the self, I think it's about knowing, what do you need? Do you need a pencil? Do you need some clay? Do you need your tea next to you? Do you need to take a walk when you're finished? Do you need to watch 5 episodes of your favorite TV show when you're done? What's going to keep you happy and joyful? And it's not, happy isn't right, it's joyful.
Yeah, you seem joyful.
It's joy. And I think like there's a movement on earth right now to elevate joy versus happiness, because there's something about joy that's about tapping in to the connectivity and the collectivity of the world. And I think stories have been with us throughout time. That's our species, like, expertise,
I love stories.
Stories are everything. We are a species of stories. And that, I think, is what propels us forward and keeps us alive. And we are in a moment where finally voices whose stories have been silenced for millennia, that really is millennia, are starting to be heard. And so we need whoever you is out there watching, right? Like we need your stories.
Well, I'm going to have to wrap it up. And it was such a pleasure to have you, Caroline. I hope you come back again.
I'd be honored. Thank you.
I love your work. And I have to, just a little parental warning before you watch some of her videos. Okay, it's says a mom.
There's some rated G stuff too.
There is.
But deep cuts.
Thank you for stopping by, and a good night.